I was directed to a video that claims it has 5 separate ways to disprove evolution. Even one would mean groundbreaking scientific cataclysms, uprooting the well-established understanding of biological diversity. Let's take a look before the Nobel Committee awards them for these breakthroughs. Let's start at the beginning. When a population increases, the number of babies born with harmful mutations will also increase. But it will increase, as the graph they put up shows, linearly, not exponentially. All other things being equal, the percentage of organisms in a population born with a mutation, harmful, beneficial, or neutral, will remain roughly the same no matter the size of the population. It's odd they put up a graph that kind of disproves their point. In the same way, a large population of humans will have more total left-handed people than a smaller population, but the percentages will remain the same. What you apparently don't take into account is the culling factor of natural selection. Organisms born with a harmful mutation are much less likely to breed to pass on that mutation. So, while harmful mutations will occur, and the more babies born, the more harmful mutations will be present in a population, those harmful mutations will be much less likely to be passed on, meaning they will be less likely to propagate within the population. Not everything evolves in the same way. Let's clear something up first. Some apes have 24 chromosomes and some have 23, because, as I mentioned in the past, humans are apes. Just because there is a fusion in our chromosomes to produce human chromosome 2, that doesn't mean that all speciation is derived by chromosome fusion. Genetic change can happen without chromosome fusion. Yes, that was one of the major changes in humans, but not every evolutionary change will involve fusion of chromosomes. Evolutionary change can result in a species with more, or less, or the same number of chromosomes as their ancestors. Oh, and nice work trying to use fancy words like eukontoglires. Hey, shut up! Science is hard. Eukontoglires are a clade of animals that, while genetically related, can be quite different, with one of those differences being the number of chromosomes. The group Rodentia are also in the clade of Eukontoglires along with humans, with rats and mice having 21 and 20 pairs of chromosomes respectively. It would be the same as arguing that since some members of the phylum Chordata have 4 legs, they all will, when this quite obviously isn't the case. This is the flip side to your first point. While natural selection will remove harmful mutations from the gene pool, it will encourage beneficial ones. Yes, the law of large numbers states that over time, if things have the same likelihood of occurring, they will average out. For instance, if I were to roll this die, where the probability of each number is equally likely to occur, the average value of rolls would equal out to 10.5. True, but this is more of a visual aid, and much more visually impressive than this. Alright, moving on. What differentiates this from biological evolution is natural selection. The fact that the mutations that allow an organism to survive and thrive relative to the rest of its population means that the same likelihood of all organisms staying the same is removed. Let's go back to our die illustration. If, for some reason, every time the die got a result that was higher than, say, 15, the weight would shift so that number would be more likely, then, over time, while lower numbers would still come up, the average value would rise. Bat evolution has been analyzed and documented thoroughly by people much smarter than me. Documentation like this can be easily found with a quick search. Just because bats are the only mammals with a specific trait doesn't mean that evolution hadn't happened. It simply means that bat ancestors were in the environmental niche that naturally selected toward movement through the air. The bat ancestors that were best able to control themselves were more likely to pass on their genes over the rest of the population, eventually resulting in true flight. And yes, bat wings are more fragile than, say, bird wings. That doesn't mean they didn't evolve either, but rather they evolved using a thinner, lighter form of wing than birds. If a species of bat found itself in a situation where having thicker, sturdier membranes would be advantageous over the current thin, lighter wings, it would cause that population to gradually evolve stronger wing membranes that are less likely to tear. The fact that some humans are unable to rapidly change their sleep patterns in relation to the time zone they are in is not surprising in the least. Humanity evolved about 250,000 years ago, and back then it was unlikely that we would travel through multiple time zones on a regular basis enough to evolve a change in circadian rhythms relative to local time. I think it is safe to assume that not many members of Homo erectus were jetting across the ocean for either business or vacations. They spent most of their life within the same time zone with roughly the same schedule of day and night, so there was no need to have rapidly adjusting internal clocks. Even nomadic tribes would not move far enough in a short enough time to warrant needing to adjust their circadian rhythms too much, let alone evolve a massive biological change. There is no reason for plants to be any different. They evolved in certain areas where local noon was always the same time, and, more so than animals, would likely stay where they are. So, it makes sense they've evolved to anticipate predictable environmental events according to an internal clock. Remember that plants compete for survival just like animals do. So, ones that had an internal clock telling them when to open or close or other actions would outsurvive ones that just randomly reacted. And even these circadian rhythms can be reset by exposure to outside stimuli, like changes to temperature and light. As for this weekly clock cycle for many phenomena, what phenomena are you talking about? I did a brief check, but couldn't find any. But, even if there were, what does that prove? How many multi-day phenomena exist, and how many fall outside the arbitrary 7-day week? So yeah, if these points can be countered by a schmuck like me, with just a few minutes of research and a basic understanding of biological evolutionary theory, I really doubt that you'll be convincing the world's scientists to reject evolution through natural selection anytime soon.